A brand new slasher film starring Jeffrey Dean Morgan and produced by him and his wife? You have my attention. So after a very brief theatrical run, Bloody Axe Wound has made its way to streaming on Shudder, and I was able to check it out last night. And what the movie's about, you have this girl named Abby who's been adopted into the family of an iconic serial killer. Like, imagine if Jason Voorhees was real, and he had a daughter, and he had a business to run, and he was killing teens, and he actually existed. That's what this movie's trying to do. You have this guy named Roger Bladecut. He's like the infamous serial killer of this world. He's killing teens in this town. Everybody knows of his legacy. And you have this girl named Abby who's his daughter, and she's going to try to follow in his footsteps and start killing people so that they have more stuff to sell for their family business. They run this video store, they kill teens mimicking horror movies, they make their own snuff films called like the Bladecut series, and that's how this family gets by, and it's kind of like a satire horror comedy mockumentary, at least it tries to be. Right off the bat, I think this movie's concept is actually really cool and unique. I've seen like basically every horror movie ever made, and I can't think of something that was exactly like this. So I was intrigued with what could possibly be. As I said in the intro, Jeffrey Dean Morgan is in this, but he's only in this for about 3 minutes, so that was disappointing. Classic bait and switch in the title screen. But I think this movie's actually pretty strong when it's in the setup phase. I actually enjoyed the first half of this movie quite a bit when it has the potential to be something good. Keyword: potential. This movie's kind of a mess as it continues to get going. It's one of these clear-cut examples of a movie that kind of has a concept, but it doesn't know how to flesh it out. The first half of this movie, you're getting to meet Roger Bladecut. He's teaching his daughter his legacy, like the rules of being an infamous serial killer. He's teaching her all of the tropes of horror movies, like how not to get caught, how to sneak up on people. He's just kind of having fun with the fact that this, again, is kind of like a mockumentary. It's making fun of slashers. And when it's blending those tropes with like old school VHS flashbacks and kills, I actually think it's pretty interesting. I think the kills are pretty cool in this. They're just way too far few in between. Then the second half of this movie starts to feel way too derivative. It kind of turns into a very lazy horror comedy satire coming of age story, with the most important thing to highlight being this is a horror comedy, but it's not funny. Like, not funny at all. I don't think I chuckled at all during this film. It has a very weird sense of humor. It's kind of trying to be a mockumentary without fully committing to it, trying to be a satire, but it's not witty or funny enough. It's very cringe humor. Think of the least funny person you know and think of them trying to write a very complex, layered commentary mockumentary horror film. That's this. And it's kind of a shame because I think if this movie would have tried to be more serious and explored that concept of her following in the family legacy, having fun with the tropes of slasher films, the idea of funding a business based on their kills, I think this movie could have been a ton of fun and honestly a huge surprise. But I was not expecting this movie to be as corny as it was, over the top humor. At a certain point, I just wanted the jokes to end because none of them worked. Kills themselves, I think they're pretty good. There's just not enough of them. A lot of them take place off screen. Also a very unlikable cast of characters. The main girl's okay. Like, it puts you in this moral dilemma. Should you root for her to succeed in the family business? Should she be a good person? So I'll say she's acceptable. Basically every other character in this movie, I wish they were fodder and they all would have been killed off by Roger Bladecut. They are all equally annoying. And for this type of movie to be a joking slasher, it was actually kind of hard to follow in my opinion. It was kind of all over the place. Some characters come and go. You don't really see the main guy for way too long. It's like an hour or so of the movie in a row until he comes back into it. So by not focusing on him, you're left with a bunch of characters you really don't care about, a very derivative coming of age tale, and it just feels like they absolutely fumbled a really interesting setup. And there was one thing in particular, in the second half, they actually get to a camp. It feels like they're setting up the exact same plot of Jason, and I thought they were going to go full satire. And you get to the camp and you hear the backstory of how this origin was created, and then it just kind of turns into the Breakfast Club with a bunch of unlikable, unfunny characters, and you don't even see the main guy for, again, like 20 minutes. As much as I wasn't enjoying the comedy, if they would have just leaned into a final act bloodbath and went full slasher, I think this movie could have been a redeemable good time. But the fact that they just full on go with the coming of age story, stupid in my opinion. So overall, guys, I almost saw this in theaters, but I actually missed it. I'm glad I didn't actually spend any money on it and I watched it at home. It's not the most unwatchable movie I've ever watched, just incredibly forgettable. It's a horror comedy that's not funny, and that's never a good sign. The actual main concept and the killer, I think, had a lot of potential. They're just not on the screen enough, and the main girl and her story is not enough to save it. So I think Bloody Axe Wound is background noise. Oh, and I also need to point out the name Bloody Axe Wound is one of the stupidest movie titles ever. But if you guys did get around to seeing this, comment down below, let me know. Like the video, helps the channel a lot. Subscribe. I like talking movies with you, but I will see you in the next review. Peace.